So yesterday was World Mental Health Day 2020, of course, October 10th, and I was supposed to check this video yesterday, but I had to do some research before talking about this topic. And well, a lot of people have been asking me, when is the next story time? When is the next story time? Well, here is a new story time. Story times are very popular on this channel, and if you're wondering when do I upload videos, I typically upload Monday, Wednesday and Friday, but sometimes I upload more. So if you're brand new here, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you tap the bell icon thing. I'm going to be telling you a story about my understanding of anxiety. For those of you who do not know, I'm not just a DJ and I'm not just a YouTuber, but I am also a student of psychology. I studied psychology in campus, so I have a bit of understanding about some of these mental health issues. Let me just give you a disclaimer. First of all, I don't have anxiety. I don't have anxiety right now, but there are 2 times in my life I've experienced like major episodes of anxiety for like a long time. And I originally never used to like. These 2 times were somewhere in 2019 and somewhere in 2020. Before 2019, people used to tell me, Ed, I have anxiety, I can't come for rock gigs. Ed, I have social anxiety, I can't come for rock gigs. Ed, I have anxiety of this kind, I don't do well in crowds. So many rock heads have told me this. I don't do well in crowds, do well in gigs. And I never used to understand it. I was like, anxiety? What do you mean anxiety? Yeah, see, I didn't understand until I actually began to experience, a bit of what they were experiencing. So anxiety, I think, also has levels. I think levels, yeah. It can be mild, it can be extremely chronic to the point that you don't even know how to go about your day. So I'm just going to be telling you my experience, 2 stories that helped me come to an understanding of anxiety, and hopefully they'll help you, and hopefully I'll tell you my mechanisms that I use whenever I find myself either being anxious or I start overthinking. So the first story happens in August 2019. If you are very deep in the scene, you know that August 2019 there was an album launch for a certain band. I was working with this band and I love that band. I think they're amazing, they make great music, and they wanted me to DJ for their album launch. If you are deep in the scene, you know which show this is, yeah. So I was working with them and we had come up with a technique of how to prepare ourselves when the gig is done, which was selling tickets. Yeah, we were selling tickets for the event. So I was supposed to sell tickets on my end, which would generate income for me during the gig, and then also them, they were selling tickets on their end. I remember that week the gig was on a Saturday. So between Monday and Saturday, I'm supposed to sell tickets to people. And there was a lot of hype. I had talked to the band. I was so happy for them. Yeah, of course, this is a Kenyan rock band. Yeah, I was so happy for them. And I was like, guys, I can't wait for your album to be released. I'm so happy for you. I'm so hyped up. It's gonna be big. Hype, yeah. So I remember Monday I didn't sell a thing. Tuesday I sold one ticket. Wednesday I didn't sell a thing. Thursday I sold like 2 tickets. Then by Friday I sold another 2 tickets. Roughly I sold maybe 6 to 8 tickets. I was like, by Friday I've sold 6 to 8 tickets and the gig is the next day. So in my head I'm like, Yani, I told these people that I will deliver I told this band that I will deliver them an audience, and I've only sold like 6 to 8 tickets. So now this is where the anxiety starts to kick in. And I was like, throughout that entire week I was on edge, thinking that what if I don't sell tickets? But it was just slowly building up. It was like a slowly building up, like, should I say, like a creeping death. Yeah, in get to pole, it's coming in slowly. And then on Friday, because Saturday is the day of the gig, Friday is now when it hit like its apex. And I was on terror mode, and I was like, why am I so afraid? This has never happened to me before. Like, what if no one comes for the gig? What if I disappoint this band? Yeah, what if nobody buys tickets? And then you remember, it's not just about disappointing the band, but I'm also paying myself by selling the tickets. So I was like, what if I don't make any money for the gig? At the time also I was struggling a lot with gigs. I didn't have a weekly rock night. And this was like the first gig that I had done, I think August. So I was like, I have so much riding on this gig because I want the band to do well. I want to do well. I also want to make some cash as I do this gig. Hey, the amount of stress and anxiety Thursday night, Friday night, especially because I had sold 6 to 8 tickets. Well, I have never forgotten it. It was like I was in bed, I can't sleep. And I'm like, why can't I sleep? Yeah. And I remember I would pick my phone. Anytime a notification pops up on my phone, ding! Yeah, I'm thinking it's someone wanting a ticket, and I'm like, is it someone asking for a ticket? You know, I would also inbox people telling them to come for a gig. So I would be like, is it someone replying to my invite? Yeah, I was on full edge, full on fear mode, because anxiety at its core is really a fear. This is now the first part I realized about how to manage anxiety, how to stop overthinking. Is number one, this is the first nugget maybe I can give you, and it has also helped me, is you need to give yourself a flexible time limit, and also give yourself a goal that you can achieve realistically. Yeah, that's the first part, I think, about coping with anxiety, because a lot of people, the reason why they experience anxiety, especially men, is because we feel like we need to do this thing and it has to happen in a certain way, and it has to happen in a certain amount of time, otherwise it is in such negative words, yeah, it's a failure, or it's this, or I will look bad, or it will be embarrassing. That's just one of the many reasons why people tend to struggle and experience anxiety. Of course, when the gig actually happened, that Saturday when the album launch actually happened, of course it went well. It was one of the best gigs ever. And I realized that it was all up here. Really. It wasn't just because the reason why I sold 6 to 8 tickets, but Kenyans are last minute people, yeah. So on Saturday morning, of course, after I spent the entire Friday night panicked and unable to sleep, yeah, Saturday night, let's say around noon, because the gig started at around 6. Around noon, that's when people now started flocking into my phone, and I was like, oh, you see, oh, thank God. Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm okay. Hey, but for in that moment where I was feeling a sigh of relief, I was like, people who experience anxiety experience this kind of this range of emotions throughout their entire life. That is when now I began to understand and empathize with people who have anxiety. Yeah, I'm a rock DJ. I stand in front of people and I'm very confident. So that was like, after that gig, that was like the very first time I began to empathize with people who have anxiety, because I've never forgotten the way I was panicked. And the funny thing is, I've sold tickets before. I've done many gigs where I sold tickets before. But you see, this one was different because it wasn't my gig, it was someone else's gig, and I want them to do well. Yeah? I always feel very bad whenever I feel like I'm disappointing someone and I've set the bar so high, which brings me back to my point. Whenever you set the bar so high and realistically you want to accomplish it in a short amount of time, that can really toy with your head. Number two has to do with the fact that you need to understand, this can also help you deal with anxiety and overthinking. You need to understand that you're not perfect, and the desire for perfection is very poisonous. You need to write that down somewhere. The desire for perfection is very poisonous, because a lot of people who have anxiety sometimes view it like, oh, I can't make friends, I'm like this, I'm like that. Yeah, you see, the thing is, you are like that. You see, that's the power now. You are like, yes, you are weird with your head shape. Yes, you are who you are, and you need to accept yourself that way. And once you do, you will stop feeling so anxious about it, and feeling like I cannot perform. Just like I said, you cannot perform in a certain way the way you feel you need to achieve or reach up to this standard. Once you begin to accept your flaws and realize that trying to be perfect, you are very human and very flawed, you will never be perfect. Once you begin to understand this, it sort of begins to shed off that anxiety. But until you accept your flaws and accept yourself for yourself, you'll always feel anxious no matter what the situation. Standing in front of people, trying to talk to someone, trying to being in a job interview, whichever situation, until you get comfortable with yourself. Next story has to do around this year, around March ama April around there, just before the Rona, just before the pandemic set in Kenya, like 2 days before things went into lockdown, quarantine, whatever, just before. I remember I was playing at Jay's Westlands, and I was playing on a Sato there. So the manager at Jay's Westlands, really cool guy, really cool guy. He's a rocker. I think he's also subscribed to this channel. So make sure you subscribe and give me a like if you enjoy. You want me to discuss more about these kinds of topics and have these kinds of constructive story times. Typically on this channel I talk about rock music, but I also like talking about issues facing rockers, rock fans, rock music, rock fans, their mental health and stuff like that. Yeah, I did a whole video about depression as well. I'll leave the link to pop up here. I think it's here. Yeah, here, and then I'll also leave it at the end screen. You can check it out when this video is over. So this is just my understanding. I'm not necessarily a professional in these matters, but there's a certain understanding I've gotten, revelation, yeah, about anxiety. So the second story happens at Jay's Westlands just before Corona set in, just before the Rona set in. What was happening is the manager of Jay's walks up to me and he tells me, "Ed, I'm so happy that you are here. Can't wait to build this rock night with you." And then he tells me about this Thursday night. Thursday night at Jay's usually it's packed. Yeah, apparently it's packed. And he was like, we typically have 2,000, 3,000 people here. Yeah, 2,000, 3,000 people here. So I want the rock night to, to reach that level. And me, I'm there like, okay. Yeah, in my head, I'm like, how can I ever reach a rock night 2,000, 3,000 people when I have never even done a rock night for I think 100 or 200 people? How can I get there? So you see, this is the third thing about understanding anxiety. You need to understand your triggers. Yeah, you need to understand your triggers. You need to understand what is it, which situations am I typically in, that whenever I'm in them or whenever the thoughts about those situations start to set in, I begin to get anxious. And then my number four nugget is you need to, this is something that I personally tell myself, you need to, I always tell myself, this is my number 4 tip about how to stop anxiety and overthinking. You need to tell yourself that you have the right not to lose your ish. Yeah, you have the right not to lose your ish. The cops say you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right not to lose your ish. You have the right to calm down, breathe in, step back for a bit, and just evaluate, the situation and be like, how do I deal with this from a logical perspective? Because as human beings, it's natural to feel fear. It's natural to be afraid. It's natural to feel anxious. But here's the other thing. Here's the next step. You need to evaluate your thoughts. You need to ask yourself more positive questions than negative questions. Instead of saying, why is life like this? Yeah. Why am I always struggling so much? Instead of asking yourself negative questions, ask yourself more positive questions. Yeah. You need to say something like, am I able to do this? Yes. Yeah. Am I capable of doing this? Yes. Can I be able to do this? Yes. Is this a realistic goal? Yes. The more positive questions you ask your mind, because your mind literally just spits out, it just tends to regurgitate what you're feeding it. So if you feed it negativity, it vomits out negativity towards you. So you need to ask more positive, high quality questions so that you get more positive, high quality answers. Yeah, you need to ask yourself, is this really worth freaking out? The answer is no. So chill. Yeah, try. Breathing exercises have also really helped me a lot. Yeah, especially when me personally, when I get into like a heated conversation with someone, I'm like, okay, before I open my mouth and say the next thing, good to take a step back. Breathing exercises can really help you with anxiety. You also need to remember that you have the right not to lose your shit. I think you should write that as a mantra. Somewhere on your wallpaper, you have the right not to lose your ish, because the reason why a lot of people are panicked is because whenever they're in a situation, they react emotionally. They don't take the time to think, and their reacting emotionally lands them in more trouble. Someone once told me this is another nugget that you can pick up. Yeah, life is 20% what happens to you, 80% how you respond. Yeah, so something like that. So how you respond is the key part. You have the right not to lose your ish. You have the right to be able to calm down, breathe, think for a few minutes before you act. You also ask yourself, is this really worth? I've also realized that thoughts, the mind runs 24/7. You can't stop the thinking process. So instead of resisting the thought and making your body all tensed up, you might as well just let the thoughts flow and then guide them in a positive direction, because at the end of the day, they are your thoughts. If you are experiencing chronic, let me say chronic anxiety, the kind that is so crippling, it's best, to go seek, a professional, a professional like a counselor, psychologist to, to talk to. But I've also realized that in psychology, there's something called cognitive behavioral therapy. That is typically what a psychologist will take you through to try and help you with your anxiety. But at the end of the day, even after meds, even after therapy, talk therapy, you still have to integrate yourself back into normal society. You need to have your own personal coping mechanisms, and most of them have to do with what's happening up here. So back to my story. Like I said, the manager had told me, hey, we have this night that performs in a certain way, brings 2,000, 3,000 people. And then me, I was so panicked. I was like, how am I ever going to reach there? Yeah. And then here's the thing. At that specific time, there was this story trending. There was this story trending on Twitter about, it was Giraffe Mana. Yeah, Giraffe Mana in Karen, something like that. There was this story trending on Twitter about Giraffe Mana in Karen, how they treat tourists differently from they favor tourists, white people tourists, compared to the way they treat local tourists like Kenyans and blacks. And then someone tags me in that story and then tells me, at Edygrim, you see, you are he brought up the whole story of me playing at Jay's, and he told me, you see, Jay's is also in the same bracket. Yeah, someone else had tweeted about Jay's, and then this guy tags me and tells me, you see, Jay's is also the same way they treat their white clients different from the way they treat their black clients. And I was like, I told him, bro, me I went there to work. Yeah, I don't care about how the management is. The mayor went there to work, and they've treated me personally well, so I can't say more than that. I have to experience the treatment myself, and me, up to now, they've treated me really well. That specific tweet he sent me, made me realize I am walking an uphill battle. You realize the manager has told me that their Thursday night typically gets 2,000, 3,000 people. And here I am trying to convince rockheads to go to the venue that apparently is not treating Kenyans properly. Realize what is causing me to become tense. I have this very high goal to reach, and then I am working with people who are not willing, to work with me because they have, this mentality about the venue. So I realized, this is going to be an uphill battle, and it made me really, really anxious. I remember the last gig I had at Jay's Westlands. I have never forgotten, Yani. I was like in anxiety mode. I was panicked as hell. Why? Because you remember, the Rona had just started setting in. People had stopped going for events. And remember me, I've been told that, we typically have nights with 2,000, 3,000 people. So me, I'm there trying to reach that bar. Yeah, and I was just panicked. I remember where I was seated. Someone took a photo of me, and if you check Jay's Westlands, the Instagram page, you'll see a photo of me with a t-shirt written "Get drunk or die," something like that. I remember when I was seated there, I was panicked. I was panicked because I felt I was disappointing them. Just like the first story, I felt like I was disappointing them. I felt like I was not living up to the potential that I could reach. I felt like I was not delivering my end, yet they are delivering their side. Which takes me back to what I said. You have to realize that you are not perfect. And here's the other thing that can help you also deal with anxiety and overthinking. You need to realize that you're not in control of everything. Yeah, the desire for control will also toy with you. Yeah, you need to let go of control. That's one thing that I can really advise you, because a lot of people try to control situations that they can't. Yeah. They are afraid that, hey, if I jump into this situation, I don't know how to handle it. So, I don't want it in Yaribiki Vibaya. And you will never be fully in control of everything. Yeah, learn to face your fear, because fear, F-E-A-R, stands for false evidence appearing real. Yeah, if you choose to face your fear, yeah, and you actually overcome that fear, yeah, it gives you the confidence to face more fears. And that, I think, is one of the first steps towards coping and defeating anxiety, because the battle is just here. It's really here. I'm not saying that if you're afraid of snakes, go dance with snakes. I'm just saying that if, let's say, you have an anxiety of talking to people or being in crowds, start with talking with a small group of people. Which brings me to another point. It's good to have a strong social support system. Find 2 or 3 people who you are easy opening up to. You find it easy opening up to them, talking with them, being honest, because human beings are naturally social creatures. So the more pent up emotion you have and fear, yeah, the more crippling it will become, straight up. So until you talk with someone, not necessarily all the time it has to be a therapist, it can even be someone that, you know, a close friend, a sibling, someone that you feel easy confiding in. It's very easy to talk to that person. It's good to have such people around you, because whenever you need to open up and something is bothering you, you know, you give it an outlet just by talking. It starts with small steps. You feel social anxiety that you can't talk to many people, start with talking to 1 or 2 people. Then maybe the next week 2 or 3 people, then the next week 4 or 5 people, something like that. It takes baby steps to be able to overcome these things. That last night when I played there, I remember I was like, hey Maze, I wish I could get a break from doing this gig so that I can take the time to invite people, to advertise it more, because I don't want to disappoint the management at Jay's. I don't want to disappoint them, because they seem very eager to grow rock music in Kenya and have good events. I also realized, you know, there's a difference between dealing with your problem and running away from the problem. And like I said, you have to understand that not everything is in your control. Yeah, even me, who sometimes always seems very upbeat and confident, sometimes I have episodes where I experience, because ever since that gig I've never experienced an anxiety episode of heavy feelings of anxiety. I've never experienced that before. Yeah, and it's because of the things that I just said. Examine your thoughts. You have the right not to lose your ish, yeah? Realize that you're not perfect, accept your flaws. Learn to respond appropriately, not react. Yeah? Take a step back. Have breathing exercises if needed, yeah? Help yourself calm down and then respond appropriately, not react emotionally. And then have a strong social support system, people you feel comfortable talking to. Understand your triggers, in which situations that you typically step up to, and then you start experiencing a certain way. Because the sooner that you are aware of those situations, the sooner you can learn to control yourself and be able, you know, like I said, evaluate your thoughts, calm down, have breathing exercises. Yeah, and then the last piece of advice would be find something to channel all that pent up energy into. I personally channel negative energy into things like video games. You know, let's say offloads all that mental energy. Can sometimes really help with your anxiety, especially because anxiety tends to be a lot of overthinking, pent up energy, a lot of excessive thoughts. And when you have a hobby, let's say like going to the gym, something like that, exercising, hiking, you find that the more focused you are on this other thing, yeah, your mind strays away from having to focus so much on something that is making you afraid or become very anxious. Yeah. All right, thank you so much. That was my story and experience with understanding anxiety, or getting to understand anxiety. Before 2019 and 2020, I had never experienced those specific emotions, and I was like, now I begin to understand what people mean when they talk about anxiety. If you enjoyed my video and you feel like it gave you some you know, advice, some good advice, give me a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe. Like I said, I post Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Sometimes I post more, so make sure to tap the bell icon so that you receive notifications. And hope you enjoyed also my stories. Yeah, and not all the time that I try to do funny stories. Sometimes I try to do some constructive stories that, you know, can help other people other than me. All right, thank you so much for watching. You take care, and God bless.